All right, welcome to the 6th day of Best Virtual Summit and the 2nd day of SDGs, Beyond the Pandemic. We have been talking a lot about the change beyond the pandemic and its theory, but today we will focus a bit more on the practice. How can you come from theory to practice? And today we have with us Laura Orestano, who is the CEO of SocialFare, the first social impact accelerator in Italy, and the CEO of Coutinho Social Impact Campus. Laura focuses her work on leveraging social value and how you can be an entrepreneur, social entrepreneur that brings an impact in the economy. So today with us, Laura, we have the privilege to have you, and we are looking forward to guiding us how we can go from theory to practice.
Thank you, Walid. Thank you, all friends connecting, and I'm very grateful to Best, I have to say. So let's start this journey together. I do not have a specific recipe, but I just share my experience. I would like to share my screen with you. I prepare a presentation, and so here we go. Yeah, just a moment. Doesn't go on. Sorry. Yes, just a moment. Here you go. So I would like to greet you from Torino, from beautiful Torino, where I'm right now, and where actually SocialFare, as Walid said in the presentation, but also the Coutinho Social Impact Campus are based. While Torino is very well known for its technological background, for its big institutions, for a very renowned polytechnic and university, but it also very well known because of the social innovation movement and also actions that are being developed in the city. And this is what I would like to share with you. Well, I skipped my presentation. It was already introduced by Walid, and I just share the questions I would like to develop with you. Are we just change makers? And of course, I'm putting my focus on the world change, because we have to ask ourselves, what kind of change do we want to generate? And which is our purpose while we act, while we study, while we develop our language, tools, vision? And which kind of vision and tools and language do we need if we want to generate positive impact for society? I would like to share again some research. You are for sure familiar with the top 10 skills. Now we are in 2020. This is the list that is being updated regularly about the soft skills that we have to develop in order to face complexity. And you see how different, how much they have changed over time. But probably what you are not aware of is also that organizations are changing, and organizations are looking for mission and purpose as well. So it's not only a push from our personal way of being, but also it's a push, but also a search that is being carried out also by, I would say, the most visionary organizations. And here you see on the right side in figure 2, the top 10 trends ranked in order of importance in terms of changes needed by and looked for by organizations. Organizational design, leadership, culture, engagement, learning, design thinking, and so on. Well, curious enough, these changes and these trends are very well spread, equally spread across geographies on the left-hand side and across the industries. So that's quite a unique thing. We are actually working together or feeling together here, both as individuals and organizations. We are sensitive vis-a-vis the challenges of change that we would like to see in our daily life, in our working professional life. Well, fair enough. Let's see what is happening in the education world and also in our push to continuous learning. You see the private spending in Europe on education is growing, and you may track here your countries at the bottom. you see that lifelong learning is steadily growing as well, with women overcoming a little bit in terms of perhaps search for lifelong learning men, but you see that the trend is on continuous growth. And then the Digital Economy and Society Index was just released that shows us as an average in Europe among the 5 areas that you see above: connectivity, human capital, use of internet services, digital technology integration, and public service that go digital. You see what kind of average in Europe there exists, but also how different the top part of Europe, with, I would say, the bottom part of Europe, or the growing part of Europe, still need to do in order to develop answers to challenges that are not only those, but we will see in a minute what all this brings about. And then, of course, universities as well are facing quite a different, I would say, approach, or are trying to develop a different approach, where actually existing organizations do rely on disciplinary content, and now more and more future organizations instead see interdisciplinary content as the main pillars that see the interdisciplinarity becomes the new way. The last piece of information: purpose matters. Purpose matters for people already in the job, for people looking in the job, for people leaving companies. Millennials commit more to organizations if they share their sense of purpose. And is this just our side, the individual side? As I told you, not. It's not like that. People are looking for accessible opportunity to learn, to plug in, to integrate social impact into their daily jobs. That's a key point also, because on the other side, higher education training programs haven't caught up to the needs of professionals or the purpose-driven employers looking for them. So we are at the beginning, I would say, or in the middle of a reconfiguration of knowledge, which is the challenge. The challenge, of course, regards our areas, our SDGs, the impact areas, because now we are all, I would say, called upon in order to convene our forces and energies to work on impact areas. But are we prepared? Well, I believe that we need to navigate complexity with a purpose. So the key point is, what is our purpose? And I would like to share just insights. This is my presentation. It's made, as I said before, by insights and some information. And I would like to share with you these two very interesting paper. On one side, what's our end game? So, which is our purpose. On the other side, a very peculiar article published on Harvard Business Review on the model of bringing knowledge and action together. So the challenge of innovation is to bring together not only technological innovation, but to apply social intelligence, creative intelligence, and experimental intelligence. Here, another piece of information: researchers, impact researchers or researchers to generate impact, well, they focus more on this kind of thicker lines than on those that are thinner. And you see collaboration, sharing, engagement, networking, community. So the pandemic has made us pandemic-wise, meaning that we need to develop a new wisdom, a new knowledge to go back to normal? No, to bring together a new vision of the world. How shall we tackle societal challenges? Via social innovation. This is my standpoint. This is our standpoint. This is the purpose I would like to follow: to generate social progress via social innovation. This is the definition that the European Commission has given back in 2013 and is still very valid. So develop and implement ideas, products, services, models, new to meet societal challenges, to create social relationship and collaboration, and also to enhance individual capacity to act and generate new sustainability. A new renaissance is possible. We need all to think like a system and to act as an entrepreneur. And here there is the shift from theory to practice. Let's see what's happening well in Europe in terms, for example, of projects, of social innovation projects. Have been a jury member in many competitions of the European Union on social innovation. And this is the clusterization of projects that come from all over Europe that we screen in hundreds of them. From Southern Europe, mainly projects made by tangible assets, mainly buildings that are distressed assets, migrants, for youth, for inclusion, for need. From Central Europe, a special focus on green economy, education, and circular economy. From Northern Europe, networks have come together to empower citizens. And a good deal of technology on focus for social innovation, so digital social innovation from Eastern Europe. What happens when we develop in here? Allow me to share what I'm actually doing every day. What does it happen when we develop a new educational offer where impact culture is at the center, where actually we want to convey a multi-stakeholder knowledge and practice and make it available with a full array of new contents and for new products, in this case, a learning offer that can be made available to everybody and not just to the happy few or the privileged ones. While it happens that we make prototype labs, this is something that we have developed with the Polytechnic of Torino. It happens that according to the social innovation process, we launch calls for social impact startups and social entrepreneurs, people, young people as you are, that are very, I would say, knowledgeable in terms of technology, expert of university background, but also of know-how, but do want to apply that knowledge to develop solutions that matter to society, that can actually generate not only a solution, but also a sustainable way of bringing it forward, so creating a social enterprise. And what happens? Well, I share with you, it happens that many different companies are born. These are some companies that we accelerated, and all of them have a very peculiar background in technology, are actually putting technology as a tool, as an instrument to develop social innovations that matter. Restorative neurotechnologies is one of the startups we recently funded and is raising money still in these days as we speak. And again, technology that puts together a new way of giving contracts, collaborative contracts to people who instead would be exploited and left aside in the agricultural world. Or again, technology that can map the sensitivity of women in terms of safety and security in urban centers and make them actually trace and track the safest area for them where to live, but also to work, but also to walk in the cities. And again, technology that can make a platform, a gaming platform for people who are visually impaired, and instead test and live immersive game experience as standard people, as normal people. And again, technology that help us trace the unsafe area in a city as big. This is a testing district in Torino, where actually the lens of social innovation and the technological setup of sensors gives back the insight, but also the feeling of safety and security in the city. And with this insight, we re-elaborate urban regeneration activities and actions. Well, all that just to share with you that social innovation is a piece of knowledge that we need to be exposed to. And we need also to practice that in order to generate not only social inclusion, but sustainable development, which we need. There are many instruments. I guess you have listened to them also in the previous talks you have taken part to. The key point is that we need to break the silos. We need to get rid of asking permission. We need to put together our purpose, the knowledge you have, the additional knowledge that you may not have, the energy of your young age, and set up the actions. Because if we have the instruments, we need also to make the music. And the music has to be done together for common good, for the public purpose, for societal progress. So playing together as an orchestra. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura, for all the insights you have shared and for this beautiful panorama and beautiful representation of how we can play together in an orchestra and how all of us can be musicians. If we were not before, we can actually be. Coming back to some of the things that you mentioned in your keynote is the impact entrepreneurship. It is clear that today, at least among our network of young people, students of technology around Europe, that they want more and more to do work with purpose. How do you think impact entrepreneurship? First of all, what is impact entrepreneurship, and how can it be a new solution or a new, the new normal for some of the people that are looking for entrepreneurship?
Yes, the new way, I would say. Yes, or the new normal, you're right. Well, impact entrepreneurship is that way of creating. It is actually a new entrepreneurship that combines the knowledge, as I said, which is quite an advanced knowledge because there are no easy solutions. So that's why we need people with skills, but also people with knowledge and a good education that put the focus for societal challenges, to solve societal challenges. And we have seen the SDGs. I mean, those are macro SDGs in my slide, but of course, you know that there are the different breakdowns per each one of them. Well, I believe that technology actually can help develop new social enterprises, meaning that, as the Harvard Business Review says in the article, we do not need just to talk and think technology. We need to talk and think people first. So people first, community first, our purpose first, that is the purpose of a more inclusive, sustainable and equitable world. And we have seen that recently also due to the pandemic, what kind of unequal and distressed effects we had. But also the social enterprise conveys also a way of being together, because the social enterprise as such is done bottom up. It's not a top-down solution. It's a way of bringing together people, users, potentially clients, why not, of your new services in the value generation process. So the key point is that why we act as entrepreneurs, we are actually we are generating new value. I do not want to call it a value chain, but we are generating new value. It means that we participate together in a more inclusive way to the value generation. It means that the new economy is born or may be born with a purpose for social progress as the DNA of the company. So in that way, we believe that actually a critical mass can be developed that actually can change, but I would say can accelerate their change via these experimentations and practical actions by which and among which, of course, the impact entrepreneurship is, I would say, the most advanced. I would like to add one more thing. Be aware that also finance, investing is actually going or being careful or watching social innovation and social enterprises. Now there is a new, I would say, brave finance, impact investors that are coming up and they are looking not only for profit, but for purpose first. And there is this trade-off between social returns and financial returns. So now it's the time. It's the time for young generation, educated generation, to bring together also people who are at the margins, because there is also social and creative knowledge and intelligence among those who are not so privileged as we were or you are to have attended universities.
That's marvelous and is perfectly in line with what we were mentioning in the previous days. Yesterday we had a keynote from Mr. Gerardo Noto from the UNDP in Libya, and he was talking about building back better, and that this pandemic is an opportunity for us to build back better. So I would like to ask you if you think the pandemic has given more room for social impact, or it has actually impacted it negatively.
Of course, we have seen that the pandemic has a negative impact on society as a whole. But when we're talking about social impact, perhaps by trying to give a specific meaning to social impact, which is a positive impact on society, for sure, pandemic did not have that positive impact. Although the opportunity that comes from this terrible crisis is, I guess, the possibility to experiment more. So we are now, I would say, more equipped about what we want, what we really need as a community, not as individual, because we understood that they are very much interconnected. And that could be an insight that together with knowledge, together with a smart policy making, together with a strong or brave finance, together also with our energy, we can actually, I would say, exploit in order to make or to work for the vision of the world that we want to live in. This is a terrible period for many countries, but it's also a great opportunity to develop, to step up and actually take the lead. Because one more thing that we need to consider is that we need also new representation. While we are generating new value, we are also exposed to become the new leaders, the new representatives of the future. So now it's the time.
Laura, many of the target group you are talking to right now are, young students all over Europe, and they are part of students' organizations, so they are active citizens, or they try to be proactive citizens. How do you think is the role, given that you are also involved with universities? I know that you are very much active in Politecnico di Torino. What do you think is the role of student groups and student organizations such as BEST in building back better, or in being more engaged with these social challenges and actually trying to find solutions for them?
Yes, I think that as of now, as I said before, we need to step up together. So if the organization, the student organizations, as I showed before, are small orchestras, musicians, you have to choose and to make your music via the instruments that the Polytechnic, the universities provide you with. Okay, instruments and vision, but then it's up to you to write and play the music your way. So when I say don't ask for permission, I say just push bottom up also within the university, in your organization. And if there is not yet enough, about social innovation in your university, in your organizations, please step up and ask for that. I mean, I was impressed when I had a lecture at quite renowned school for policymaking, and I had people who had just graduated from different backgrounds, medical sciences, engineering, agriculture, and so on. And they said to me, why are we not taught about social innovation? Why are we just making simple projects that are for us just divertissement, you know, just small work groups to get the credits? So why are not we going deeper into that? So I think that also the universities and the polytechnics need you to be more courageous. And that's your, I would say, your mission while you're studying.
Absolutely. I think many people are lucky in Torino to have such social innovation centers like SocialFare. I think there are more in Europe, and I hope, you know, like this social innovation wave, you know, at least every student gets sensibilized about the opportunity to solve challenges that matter, and not simply to solve any problem.
Yes, exactly. And in order to solve it, you need a new language and new tools, which are not just, and you know, Walid, because you were exposed to SocialFare, to the campus, that are not just the standard practices or the standard, I would say, teachings. There is a way, there is a how you have to develop, or you can develop social innovation. So ask for that in your university. And in your polytechnics.
I have a question for those who don't have these opportunities or these tools, or these at least you know, hubs inside their cities. What if right now we have you know, a group of students from, let's say, I don't know, Tallinn or Moscow or Las Palmas in Spain, or Greece? Is there a chance for these people to relocate? Do you have? Can you talk us more about your programs? I know that you presented already Fundamenta. Can you like tell us more, and if there is a chance for foreigners to come outside from
Yes.
Italy and
Yes,
access them?
if you visit the website of SocialFare, you see that now we have this open call, which is called Fundamenta. That is the acronym for Founding Mentorship Acceleration. It is an international call. It's not just a national call, because we receive applications from all over the world, through which we want to select smart ideas or solutions of people who want to become impact entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, and who want to solve societal challenges, and you will see in the application form, with a smart and sustainable solution. When we select them, and I have to say we receive, as I said, hundreds of applications, we have a short list, of course, a strict selection. They can relocate in Torino. Why? Because we invest specifically, directly, upon selection, in their own enterprise. And that money allows them also to relocate and follow our acceleration program. At the same time, I have to say, at the Cotina Social Impact Campus, if you are not yet entrepreneur, if you do not have yet the entrepreneurial idea, or practice or experimentation, but you have, for example, you want to learn more, you want to be exposed to that non-institutional culture I talked you before. Well, again, the campus, the Cotina Social Impact Campus, provides you with fellowship, with grants. So please apply, please, or set up your social innovation hubs within your universities. I mean, this may be your first enterprise as a community.
Everyone can be a social entrepreneur if they want to be, and we have the tools. For example, SocialFare provides the tools for this. So we invite everyone who is watching us today to check out SocialFare programs, Fundamenta, Design Your Impact, and also check the Coutinho Social Impact Campus programs. Laura, we have been delighted to have you with us today.
I was very
Unfortunately,
happy to be with you.
the time ran out. Looking forward to have you in another call in the future and in other projects with BEST.
I wish you the best luck in future.
Thank you very much. We will go now from this keynote to another keynote yet by a Torino institution. So we will have the next keynote with Professor Patrizia Lombardi, the Deputy Rector of Politecnico di Torino, who will talk to us about the impact of, or the role of higher education in tackling the Sustainable Development Goals beyond the pandemic. So stay tuned and see you in a few minutes.
Bye-bye.
And we are in the air. Good afternoon, Europe. Welcome to this new keynote on SDGs Beyond the Pandemic of the BEST Virtual Summit 2020. So today we have with us Patrizia, the Deputy Rector of Politecnico di Torino. Since 2019, Patrizia has been the President of the Italian Universities Network for Sustainable Development, which includes 77 universities in the promotion of the Agenda 2030. And in addition, She also coordinates the Green Team Office and the Circular Economy Platform at Politecnico di Torino. So today, Patrizia is going to share her ideas about the role of higher education institutions in fulfilling sustainable development goals. Without any spoilers, welcome Patrizia to the Best Virtual Summit. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this kind invitation. I'm very excited to be with you. With my virtual background that show one of our location, the historical location of the Valentino Castle, which is a UNESCO site. And I would like really to have you all once again in my school that I remember I will come to you many times. So thank you for this invitation. I will start sharing my PowerPoint, which summarize my speech. I hope to be able to be on time with the presentation. You just let me know if you see it in a good way. Are you seeing? Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. So, well, it is a very important subject, but I believe that is crucially important, starting from what the Nobel Prize Stiglitz has highlighted, that in time of profound crisis, and we are in a profound crisis in economy and in politics, only non-profit organizations like universities can drive and can support and sustain a change toward a sustainable trajectory. We really believe that this is true, and the university has changed since last centuries. The role that is playing as a social role, as a civic university, civic role that is playing, not just supporting a growth-based economy and providing graduates for the market, but is co-creating the citizen of the future, the manager of the future. So education has a great responsibility, and particularly the opportunity for university to take the role of supporting environmental, social, and economical development through innovation, and innovation that is realized with other crucial actors in society, industry, civil society itself, in addition to the government, that provide fundamental co-creation of innovation. And we cannot forget the environment, not only because of the limited resources that we have in our planet, but also because the environment represent the future, represent future generation needs, represent life for the future. University play a crucial role for ensuring the achievement of the target and the all 17 goals of sustainable development. Not only the UN has dedicated one of the 17 goals in the education, that is the number 4, which is crucial and fundamental. Without education, we cannot have progress, we cannot have sustainability, we cannot have a future. But at the same time, a university, because of the missions that has got, which include also research, which include also third mission and civic role, as we just mentioned, play a crucial role in achieving all the other sustainable development goals. With the opportunity to provide knowledge, provide innovation and futurity. At the same time, the SDGs and the Agenda 2030 is useful for university because provide a framework inside which we can deliver our civic role and our university missions. So is a mutual collaboration and a mutual strengthness of effort that we can provide. Well, because of the crucial role of universities inside this society, and because of this evidence of the mutual collaboration that we needed to highlight and to realize with society for promoting the Agenda 2030, in 2015, we have officially instituted the Network of University for Sustainable Development, which is currently coordinated by Politecnico di Torino. And it involved about all the Italian university with the purpose of promoting the Agenda 2030, but also to increase the positive impact on society, enhancing the value that university can provide. You have to think that Italy has a very discontinuous and different geographical, territorial assets. And at the same time, this collaboration that local community can have with university increase opportunity for a real development inside the territorial context. The network involved more than 400 delegates working in different groups, focusing on climate crisis, mobility, energy, Western resources, education, food, and social inclusion. And here is a representation of the main focus that this different working groups has got inside with reference to the 17 Sustainable Development Goal. So as you can see, almost all the 17 goals are represented, and this means that universities in Italy are making effort in order to support and achieve all these 17 goals. Last year, the network has promoted and has been the developer of a sort of manifesto that is a sort of declaration that has been signed by all the universities in Italy, all the rectors in one of the official meeting that all the rector has got inside their committee. And this was an important step because it committed all universities and their governance in achieving sustainable development. This manifesto now has been implemented, and with this pandemic, we had a very stressful time, but also highlighted the opportunity of real effort provided by university. 122 best practices has been highlighted during this time. And thanks with the collaboration and the activities provided by university, it has been possible to support all the communities and all families and all students, not only them, in this very difficult situation created by this health pandemic situation. Politecnico di Torino is committed in providing implementation of the SDGs, and the strategic plan that has been published in 2018 2018 highlight the focus that is not just in we are the best and the excellence, but in the social impact. That means we want to serve society. And during pandemia, we have been the first in putting concrete and realistic opportunity of working group for supporting enterprising, for supporting the school sector, for supporting the sport and the health places to really have a new development. So it is really a big achievement because the collaboration with civil society and with the economical society has been important, and the proactive role of university was evident. At the same time, Politecnico di Torino has put some effort in relaunching the economy of the city, the metropolitan area, that is really in a critical situation. It was in a critical situation even before the pandemic. And because for those who don't know, the situation in Turin, that used to be really based on manufacturing and automotive structure. Well, after the leave of the Fiat and of this big company, the situation was very critical and is still very critical. And the only university, and Politecnico di Torino in particular, because of the linkages with the industry, as being a technical university, is one of the opportunity for development. And here you can see how this platform that are in a way are used for enhancing, for highlighting, and for putting research into the territorial context and meeting the need of the economical and social context is very crucial. Here you have a different platform, and one of this is the circular economy hub that I am coordinating, and that is one of the opportunity for the metropolitan area to relaunch the territorial context. And together with this, other relating to aerospace, energy, mobility, and health, manufacturing, and urban regeneration. This was possible, and the achievement of the SDGs is supported inside Politecnico di Torino through a dedicated office, which is a Green Team office, which has been a model for many other universities, and that is producing implementation of the SDGs in different sectors, including mobility and the energy building, and taking advantage of renewable resources plants that have been generated and created inside the campus, as well as in the public mobility that is a co-partner in our strengthness of opportunity for avoiding car mobility and so forth. But also in food waste and water, we had very important collaboration with urban stakeholders, but also with our students. For instance, this is a video provided by our design student, and which highlight the need for using appropriate waste disposal. It's very nice, and it is also promoting with this short clip the the need for taking care of our waste, and which can become our new resources. But also in urban outreach and communication, we have a long list of student team supporting our activities, which are crucial for achieving sustainable development inside our campus and our context. We also got an award recently because the model of a green team can be also used for other public administration, and specifically inside the sustainability report that we just published, you can see also our effort with reference to sustainable development goal. We have mapped all our courses in education, and we now realize that we are very strong in, and we have great capacity in some of these sustainable development goals, which are not only in the number 4, but also relating to community and cities and industry and circular economy. You must recognize that since Polytechnic of Turin is a technical university, this is quite important to highlight it. And we have also collaboration with the Joint Resource Center that we just launched a common PhD courses. We also mapped all our publication relating with reference to sustainable development goals, and you can see that some of this the same SDGs, the number 11, the number 3, 7, but also the one relating to climate crisis, energy, and industry is very crucial for us. We believe that multidisciplinary research is important, and this is why we created interdisciplinary research center. We also asked to people, to students, to our community, what are the SDGs most important for them? And you can see that for them, clearly, the fighting poverty and the problem of the hungry is quite important. But then we ask also, what do you think is most important for Polito? And for the Polytechnic of Turin, they think that number 4, the education, but also energy, as you can recognize, some of the environmental sustainable development goals are also highlighted here. I'm going to an end to say what's next. Next, after this pandemic situation, Polytechnic of Turin is serving, it is trying to support the relaunch and redevelopment of the local community, the metropolitan area, by thinking to make this more resilient. And so anticipating change and thinking that, well, we just not want to think to making more strong rebounding bouncing back of the situation or recovery situation, but we believe that in the transformative power and capacity of the people, of the community, we really can build long-term resilience. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, Patrizia, thank you very much for the super interesting presentation. It's super inspiring to see that your university is like actively pushing for a change to implement the Agenda 2030. We have a few questions, so let's see if we have some time. Definitely for a few of them we will. About SDGs, basically, you just said the university is pushing to collaborate with the external or industrial partners and so on to implement this agenda. But we have seen how now with the pandemic, some other problems are arising. Do you think that this new pandemic and the problems associated to it is going to shift this Agenda 2030? Do you think it's going to be now more difficult to implement it? What's going to Politecnico di Torino do if it's going to be working in the same line, or things are going to change after this pandemic?
Thank you for this question, because I really think that this pandemic situation has even more stressed the need for accelerating the achievement of Agenda 2030 target. And this is clear because everyone recognizes that this pandemic has been it happened because we live in an unsustainable world, and it's quite fundamental that we accelerate the transition. When I have an age that you see, I saw many change, and when it was starting the new millennium, I said, "Wow, there is a new millennium." I was studying sustainable development since Brundtland in 1987, and so I was really thinking that maybe in the new millennium we can make this transition. But unfortunately, we passed through many crises, including the 2008 financial crisis, and nothing much has been moved. I think that the pandemic is accelerating the transition. European research showed that the transition was already there, but slowly, and the pandemic has accelerated. I'm sure that there will be a change.
Okay, Patrizia, that's definitely, let's say, hope. Give us hope. I think
I am optimistic.
Yes. Well, hope is the first thing we need to have probably to start changing things. Okay, so we have a few more questions. This we're gonna move a bit more to the student world, as most of our audience are students, also technical students, as the ones from the university. And we were wondering, like, at some point you said with your initiatives, you are engaging students to collaborate with you. So how are you managing to engage the student? What are you doing? And just maybe to give some ideas to other universities so they can also engage students in these practices.
Well, first of all, we introduced a number of innovation inside our education. So not only new courses dedicated to SDGs and environmental sustainability, but also the approach that we use is different. We have introduced a number of challenge-based interactive learning approach inside our curriculum. We have introduced soft skills inside the vertical disciplinary engineering courses. And this is part of the innovation of the SDG 4. In terms of green theme, we are collaborating with student team and association of students on a permanent basis. Student sometimes, sometimes they are connected with us through social media, but they really support our outreach event, or most of the time, and at the same time they create really the opportunity for reinvigorating the sustainable development agenda of the Politecnico. They are really the real breathing engine for us. So there are plenty of opportunity to collaborate together. And well, I see that they are part of our community. So we are nothing without student voluntary scheme. They are also the teacher for high school. For instance, in the Friday for Future strike, we asked our students to go to schools and to teach to the student, because most of the time students in the elementary, primary or high school, they just make a strike, but they are not very much keen or understand what they are doing in terms of why the strike is important in terms of climate evidence. And so our students are great, and we can do nothing without. Yes.
Okay, Patrizia, that's super inspiring. We actually have more questions, but we only have time for one, and very briefly. If no, it's fine, it's fine. Unfortunately, we would love to have like this 1 hour, even more time conversation, but because we're a bit like running out. So, Patrizia, if you could like say one message to our network, to students, what would you say to them related to these SDGs, to the change, to call for action?
Yes, I would like to say, don't lose the opportunity don't lose the opportunity, never lose in life, and particular even during crisis, because during crisis you shouldn't waste the crisis, but make the opportunity to change and to move forward. And I really like the Gandhi ones, be the change you want to see in the world. I really believe in that, really.
Okay, Patrizia, thank you so much for these inspiring words. With this, we're gonna conclude this keynote. Yes. Well, from the organizing team, we would love to publicly thank you to be here with us today and have shared with us this super interesting experience of Politecnico di Torino with the SDGs involvement. And well, for everyone watching, stay close to the streaming, because in, let's say, 3-5 minutes, we're gonna have a super interesting panel discussion with actually youth NGOs. So we're gonna keep on this debate about youth. But let's try to understand the point of view of the youth. So thank you so much. Stay tuned. Thanks, Patrizia, and
thanks
see
again.
you all.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Perfect. Hello, everyone, to the best virtual summit on youth and the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals, we call them SDGs in short, and they have been agreed by the United Nations back in 2015. Since then, this is our agenda to make the world more sustainable. And now we will focus in this session on what the organization will present themselves doing, but also very important, we are all now in the corona crisis, and yeah, we will also talk about this. What is the role of young people in this crisis when we have been seeing that the economy was slowing down, that yeah, family got under the poverty line, healthcare systems were collapsing, but also the education was pretty challenging. So we have all of this, like we have this new situation now, and within midst of this crisis, we have a lot of young people who are very passionate about the SDGs, who really want to contribute and make a change and want to also steer forward and drive this sustainable development agenda forward. And it's very interesting to see like what these different organizations are working on, which is like their focus, but also see how we best can collaborate to commonly all together move this agenda forward. And that's why it's like my great pleasure to have yeah, like different presidents actually and people from the board here represented. They will, yeah, as mentioned, quickly present afterwards themselves and also what their organization is doing. So first we will have a presentation by Joana Ribau. She is the liaison officer for quality education and also the SDG portfolio from ESN. And then we have been following afterwards Hanna as the project director from AEGEE. And then we will follow with ESTIEM with Duarte, who is the vice president for education. I hope I pronounce all the names correctly. This is always pretty challenging, despite we are here all in Europe. And then we have Senne, who is, correctly, the president of the current president of BEST, and they have been delivering this wonderful opportunity with this BEST Virtual Summit, really a 21st century summit. Yeah, engaging young people, having a really on-the-spot topic, but also delivering it online in such a short time. So also congrats for this. But yeah, without further ado, because it's really about our wonderful panelists here, I want to hand over the word to Joana. And she will talk, like all of them will quickly present themselves and what they will introduce themselves, but also introduce the organization they are representing, and mainly focusing on what the organization is doing in terms of the SDGs, and yeah, to give us a little bit better picture on yeah, on what these organizations are doing. Joana, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the nice presentation. So the Erasmus Student Network is an international network, and we are present in 42 countries. And our aim is to support international students and support learning mobility. So we have a lot of local sections, so local associations that work with international students, and as well we have national organizations and we work at international level. So we have a big scope of activities that goes from organizing a volunteering activity at the local level to the policy one. So in ESN, we work with the SDGs, And we aligned our causes, which are the fields where we work with the agenda. So we have 6 causes, such as social inclusion or education and youth, skills and employability, environmental sustainability, and we work in those areas with the international students and with the Erasmus+. We have been, along the way, we have been developing a lot of projects that go towards the agenda. As for example, we had a project which is Under the Rainbow, which is a project about capacitation of our volunteers about the LGBTQI community. So, and as well, we have STIEM, which is a project that where we are studying the social inclusion in learning mobility. However, we had one project that was very specific and very focused on SDGs, which was Global Erasmus. So we wanted to introduce SDGs to our volunteers and to volunteers that work with learning mobility. So we developed a project where we capacitated our volunteers and others, part of ESA, in the SDG field and in global citizenship field. And with that, we had a training and we had development of recommendations for actions and as well a toolkit that actually capacitates our volunteers. Why did we start this way? One of the sentences that stayed with me in the framework of the SDG 4 is that quality education is enriched if not reached by all. And what we read in Liaison is that if we keep talking SDG language, we would miss some public. We would miss some volunteers that are not familiarized with the topic. So our aim last year was to make the topic for everyone, despite their knowledge in the field. And this is what we did with Global Erasmus. So we developed throughout the year a toolkit and we started to capacitate some volunteers. So this year we were able to introduce the topic for everyone. And that's why as well that we focus our work in SDGs a lot in the causes. They are aligned with them, but instead of 17, there are 6. And it's much easier because everyone identifies with. Besides, we have been working as well in the impact of COVID-19 in learning mobility. So we developed a research on what happened to international students due to the pandemic. And believe it or not, and I think that's why we're here, COVID-19 has a lot of impact in the agenda for sustainable development of the United Nations. As so, yes, some parts of the environment, some fields like relaxed transportation, yes, they were improved, let's say. However, we have the part of social rights that we're going to have a decrease on our development. And that's why we're starting to study the impact of the pandemic in our international students, because Erasmus Plus is not an inclusive program. As you know, we're doing our best, but we still have a long way to go, and it will be less and less inclusive due to the lack of support that we had in some fields. And so we had a report, and we are now reflecting on the work to do in terms of the agenda and how to support our students. We are now focusing on the social inclusion of the program, and then we'll be focusing on as well in the LGBTQI community and the support that we can give. And we have been working as well allied in the environmental field, which is a very important part of mobility, as you know, and it has an impact that we must work on. So yes, I think that is it from our work, and I can answer to the questions if you have them.
Thank you so much, Joana, for this short and brief overview of what you're doing in the SDGs. I know, like, the SDGs, as you've been mentioning, is such a broad topic, so sometimes it's hard to capture it. And at the end, I mean, nearly everything what we are doing somehow contributes to the SDGs in one or the other way. But yeah, thank you so much. And also, I guess afterwards, we can share with the audience as well some links on the website, some toolkits. So everything what you have to share, like let us know so we can also share it afterwards. Also, you have, like the audience, you got a Slido link, so you can ask questions to the speakers, but especially afterwards we will have a discussion, and there I think your view and your questions are very welcome. So now, with any further ado, we hand over to Hanna from AEGEE, who will talk about their work on the SDGs. Hanna, your floor.
Yes, indeed. I will also share my screen. Okay, so as said, I'm Hanna. I'm the project director of AEGEE, and I'm going to talk shortly about what us in AEGEE are doing for the SDGs. So, yes. So what is AEGEE? We are a network of 160 cities around Europe with up to 13,000 members. And together with these members, we strive for a democratic, diverse, and borderless Europe, which is socially, economically, and politically integrated, and values the participation of young people in its construction and development. With that said, we do many different activities, projects, campaigns, and so on to achieve this vision in any way the youth thinks that we can reach this vision. For example, one of the projects that we did we do regularly is Europe on Track. And in 2018 was the edition on sustainability and climate change. And this edition was special because this was the first time AEGEE tackled the Sustainable Development Goals directly. So Europe on Track is a project where ambassadors in teams, which that year also included me and Marie-Claire, coincidentally, traveled through Europe for 1 month and raise awareness, create the space for discussion, and capture the opinions of young people in Europe on important social topics. That year, we also discussed the Sustainable Development Goals and educated young people on this topic. Of course, it's not enough to only talk about the SDGs themselves, but actually also to work on them more directly. And this is what we're doing with many different projects, because as said before, the SDGs, the sustainability is very, very broad. But here are just some examples. For example, this year's edition of Europe on Track was focusing on gender equality and mental health, relating directly to SDG 3 and 5. We also have a Erasmus Plus project at hand, which is about circular economy. We have the project Why Vote, relating more to the peace, justice, and strong institutions SDG. We have the Human Rights Day project and focus area on youth development, working on quality education and employment of young people. But recently, we have seen that even though we do all of these activities, we are still tackling the topic of sustainability in a fragmented way. So half a year ago, in our last General Assembly that happened live, we ratified the Sustainability Manifesto. With the manifesto, we as an organization commit to mainstream sustainability through every activity project that we take. We commit as individuals to consider sustainability in every action that we take as an organization, but also most importantly, we commit to call for action on every level, and also for decision makers on every level to commit to sustainability. And following up on the Sustainability Manifesto, recently we have created a sustainability committee in our organization, which measures our impacts towards sustainability. And we're trying to also we mainstream the Sustainable Development Goals now through our strategic plan, which is for the next 3 years. But even though we try to measure and do our best, this is still something that we definitely cannot do alone. So that's why I'm also very happy to be here today to discuss together with other youth organizations and see how can we work together to achieve this ideal. And thank you for now.
Thank you so much, Hanna, for this excellent presentation about what you're doing. And yeah, as you mentioned, like none of us can do it alone. So then let's go over to Duarte from STIEM to tell us what you're doing on the SDGs, like where are you now, and highlight some of your SDG projects.
Okay, thanks. Then let me start sharing my screen. Okay, I suppose you are seeing it. Yes, okay, nice. Let me put this on. Okay, nice. So yeah, let's see how I can guide you through on our short history on Sustainable Development Goals, but quite enthusiastic still. Nice, a little bit of introduction of us, just like as you did for your own organizations. We are 75 local groups in 31 countries. We are very much event-based association as well. However, the Sustainable Development Goals demand another side of the organization, but still very event focused, and we do nearly more than 3,000 travelers per year. That's still a number we do. Yeah, on the Sustainable Development Goals, I do think, and I think that the two first points are going to be a little bit different than yours, because I do think we're a little bit more company focused in ESTIEM, but that's not a problem. We're going to see why the goals are different. On the being a facilitator, that's going to be a little bit more on the sustainability, and that's where you are already very much there. On being an analyst, what does it mean? At the moment, ESTIEM is developed descriptive analysis and dashboards. So we are doing a lot of graphical analysis on the current state of industrial engineering and management, meaning that our goal is that we create a lot of analysis that we can present to companies, universities on recommendations on what they should improve on economic growth and employability, and also on quality education. So for example, as you can see, we have there, for example, the curricula of University of Porto and the curricula of University of Eindhoven, and then we can see, okay, perhaps we can go to the university and propose, yeah, you should change your curricula towards this or towards that, based on graphical analysis that we have. These are examples of graphics, but then we also have, as you could see, for skills of students and for market job. We are also partnering in a European funded project to create as well new master's degrees in Europe, standardized for all universities, with a big partner organization that we have to clearly go a little bit more into leadership and industry 4.0 skills. And as you can see, this would contribute to quality education and decent work and economic growth. On the part of being an executioner, okay, what can I lead you here? Yeah, the whole point is that ESTIEM also teaches students a lot of quality management skills based on Lean Six Sigma methodology. And the whole point is that now we are creating a task force of students, obviously that for their own personal benefits, but also they go to different companies, both in Africa and in Europe, to improve their methodologies on Lean Six Sigma. And that clearly is giving a lot of benefits for ESTIEM, not only recognition, but also in improving the quality of those companies. And we are doing that by partnering with the International Trade Center. And again, since it's very company focused, is helping not only quality education, but also economic growth of companies. On being a facilitator, and this has been something that has been around in ESTIEM since 2009, but the execution got a little bit lost. And this year we introduced again, as some of you already mentioned, that you also have a team focused on sustainability. And for that, the team will mainly focus also on suggestions on traveling more environmentally friendly, also doing surveys on advocacy matters, as some of you also talked about equalities and genders and so forth, CO2 analysis, and also empowering the local groups to talk about these issues. Yeah, and for this, just to visualize, we aim to go a little bit further in these three goals. And I think that's all. Exactly, that's all. Nice. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And I think like it's so fascinating to see that we are all operating in the same area and all operating with young people and having a kind of similar goal, right, about youth empowerment. But then having a very different approach. And I think this is exactly what we also want to find out in this webinar and want to see what we are doing. We got already one question, but I think we can just end this round and also go now to our host. Best, and there we have Senne presenting. Yeah, let us know what you're doing on the SDGs, except having this brilliant webinar here now.
Thank you, Marie-Claire. Actually, just like ESTIEM, we're quite new in our structured work towards the Sustainable Development Goals in Best. We definitely haven't been doing this in a structured way for many years. However, also as Marie-Claire said, the SDGs themselves are quite broad, so many of our activities in many ways are tying into it. And recently we've started trying to sort of figure out how to make our separate activities work for the larger, broader goal of the SDGs. Specifically, for many years, we have been working with intercultural development in making sure that young people have the opportunity to experience other cultures, to experience other people in many ways, and that way to sort of decrease the inequalities that exist, decrease the prejudices, and that way we try to go for a larger sense of community amongst European young people. Additionally, for a bit over 15 years now, we've been actively working on improving education through our educational involvement program, where we're working with institutions like CSIC, the European Society for Engineering Education, in figuring out what students want, what students need, and where education should be moving towards. This through dialogue with corporations, with institutions, with providers of education in any way, and specifically students themselves. A few years ago, we obviously started also noticing that many of the solutions, many of the problems that are existing related to sustainability start from a technical background. They start from a sort of a technological problem, or at least the solutions to many of the problems will be coming from a technological perspective. So we start more and more having this understanding that we have a specific responsibility as the European students of technology to contribute actively to finding solutions. However, the first step there obviously is making people understand exactly what we're talking about, making people understand what the problem is. And that is the something that we've been working on very actively for the past year and also the year before that, in making sure that everyone in our network, all the besties all over Europe, start to understand the problem, start to understand why we should be contributing to this, and that way sort of become advocates for the SDGs and for finding solutions for the SDGs. It's definitely not an easy task, and one of the steps in that whole process is, for example, this webinar and the whole virtual summit, where we're focusing on SDGs, on working on education, and the pandemic's effect on those things. And we're hoping that this will spark conversation, that this will spark understanding specifically all across the network, and that in the future we'll be able to continue to work there. When we're looking more towards future actions or towards things that are sort of in a more primal stage, we're also starting to collaborate more with other associations, because this is one of the main things that we're noticing is that, I mean, none of us can really do anything alone in this current area. For the past decades, it made sense for us to operate next to each other, but right now it's more and more important that we start to collaborate instead of compete, specifically towards such large global goals. For example, right now we're working with AEGEE on a project related to environmental sustainability. Generation Climate Europe is starting a new project. And we're definitely looking forward to doing more things like that. Obviously still focusing a lot on the awareness and on getting everyone on board and getting everyone to take action, and sort of taking all the individual actions that are now happening all across the network, of which there are quite some, but getting them all clustered, getting them all structured, and making sure the impact is maximized of the individual actions we're taking. Yeah, I think that's mainly it. This is the stage where we're in. We're mostly very happy to look for ideas, look for opportunities with all the people we're talking to in moments like these we're in right now. So once again, thanks everyone for being here and engaging with us.
Brilliant. Thank you so much to everyone for these wonderful presentations. Already give us kind of like an introduction to what your organization is doing. Also, where are you now? Like, what is already happening before we go into the panel discussion where we mainly focus on where do we want to go? So what is our goal? What is like still missing? So all of these questions will be tackled next. So yeah, thanks so much. And I think it was really brilliant to see how many collaboration already could spark out of what you have been presenting now. Just like remind the audience and for the new people who have been joining, there is the possibility to use the Slido where you can send some questions. Otherwise, it's pretty tricky for us to get your questions, so please use the Slido. And we already got some questions, so I think I will just go and start our conversation because they very nicely bridge from the introduction now to go to the outbreak to where do we want to go. So yeah, I'm just like reading out a question loud and then I hand over to whoever from the panel jumps on it first. So having identified the goals that are connected with your university or the place where you're very active, have you considered cooperating with other universities or entities for very concrete actions to connect with some of the SDGs? I mean, some people have already been mentioning this, but do you have any other project coming to your mind? Feel free. No one did anything, or how do you have to?
I can go, but it's a little bit repeating myself, but it's okay. No, I think STEAM here is doing, I would say, personalized work. As you saw, we are taking an analyst perspective, so we are going very data driven and analysts in the curriculums, for example. And what we are doing is taking a consultancy work. Every university that wants to do a research work with us, we take human resources towards that direction. So you could see working on the curriculums, we pick up the curriculums and we analyze them. I do think STEAM will continue this way in many other topics, and this is an example for the panel here as a thing to analyze. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I can add on that. Can I? Yeah. About what we're doing in Liaison in the project that we developed last year, we came out with recommendations for actions so that we're very focused on the local level. So for our local sections to work with their stakeholders, and as we know, Erasmus Plus involves, of course, a lot of universities and higher education institutions. That's the core. And so some actions were focused on the cooperation with higher education institutions, mostly the part of the educating students towards sustainable development. So we think it's very important to look at our local communities and start to develop some actions in order to educate youth in the field of SDGs.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And I think there are probably many other projects you're doing and maybe also that your locals are doing. So this is, thanks so much for this insight. And then we have the second question, mainly talking about the role of the NGOs to achieving the SDGs and how they can better cooperate. And I mean, first, if there is a need, but I think we already answered the question. All of you actually said that we need some more cooperation amongst the organizations and the NGOs. And maybe give some ideas already how we can increase this cooperation between the different NGOs here on this panel. Who is doing the icebreaker?
Yeah, if I can, So as actually Senne already mentioned, AEGEE and actually also ESN are already collaborating for one project right now. But also in general, like I feel like the NGO sector is very well connected and has a lot of cooperations actually happening on these topics, tackling very many different SDGs from different angles through different projects and advocacy campaigns and so on. But I do think that this is something very important and very valuable, and it's always good to collaborate. And as Senne said, now is the time to work together, not compete against each other. So I think just to communicate to each other is the best way how to increase the cooperation. But I really believe that it is already happening, and it will only grow in the future.
Sen?
Yeah, to add on that, I mean, I think Hanna basically mentioned most of it. Indeed, it is already happening. We know how to collaborate. The real problem sometimes is that in order to collaborate, you need to always adapt a bit the working methods of specific things. This is definitely something we're struggling with in BEST, that we have a lot of things going on and it's difficult to adapt them to a new type of project, a new type of collaboration. And I think that that is something that all the NGOs could invest in sort of organizational flexibility that would allow them to collaborate more easily. Because I don't think the problem is in the will or the need to collaborate, but more in the capacity to adapt to a new collaboration. And definitely for this sort of consortiums of NGOs or any type of structured communication is very effective. A few of us are also in IFISO, for example, which is a forum for many NGOs that are getting together regularly, which can be an amazing platform to start new collaborations. And I definitely think that these are things to invest in as NGOs, even obviously investing time and effort into it.
Brilliant, thanks so much. There are so many questions coming in, so I guess we let's take the questions first because they're very well fitting in the overarching topic of the panel discussion. Where do we want to go? What is the vision? So the next question which came in: what do you think is the role of student organizations like yourself and also the locals to helping the universities to actually get better and work on the SDGs? Do you have some highlights, some lighthouse examples or something you want to share with us? Who is going first?
Yeah, I can say something here. We don't have like a lot of amazing examples here in BEST. We're definitely not like sort of the lighting example here. But I think that the main thing here is that as young people, we have this luxury of being able to be a lot more flexible in our working methods, whereas in universities, we expect them to be more rigid. We expect them to be more conservative because that is one of the biggest strengths they have, is this consolidation of knowledge of experience. And when it comes to need for fast change, this comes down to us as young people to take an active stand. So being involved in organizations like ours is already something that can be useful. But obviously, I think it goes further also into individual action, which is something that we need to empower as NGOs, that the students are the ones telling their universities to change, to adapt, to improve, because we have that platform, we have that right, we have the time, it should be totally feasible. And we can't expect the universities to do it by themselves because it's not really their future at this point, whereas it is ours, and that gives us the responsibility. And again, we have the time, the resources.
Absolutely. Who agrees? Who disagrees? Joana?
Yeah, if I can add on that, I think that, well, as students' organizations and as people that are working for a cause at the local level, we are already SDGs ambassadors. So what we must keep in mind is that when we're doing our work, there is a thing that we have to have present. It's intersectionality. So our topics, the ones that we're fighting for, well, they are all connected, and they are all connected in human rights, environment, or so, and so that leads to sustainable development. I think that we already work a lot in SDGs. We are just not assessing, and we just have to recognize that. And yes, well, I think that students' organizations, they have for sure a crucial role in the agenda. We are the future. So
absolutely. Duarte, Hanna, something to add?
Yeah, I was gonna add an example on how we try to push this case by case, obviously, because SDGs are quite extensive in KPIs, as you can see on the website. A very practical way is, again, because of the nature of STEAM, in an analyst perspective, what we are trying to do is, with our network of professors also, we're trying to pinpoint universities that want to use the targets of the SDGs, the 169 targets that they have, as also their KPIs of success. So when they define what is a success for a curricula or what is a success for the university program for the students to learn, We are trying to use some cases in the network where some universities uses the KPIs or the targets of the SDGs also as the same targets of the university. So that when a university, and also propelled by ESTIEM, at the end of the year asks, did we reach success or not, that success is the same as a success of the SDGs. So we try to align the KPIs with some universities.
Yeah, and to add also like another practical thing is that we also believe a lot in the power of local youth organizations to be the leaders, and for that, like through projects like Europe on Track and Why Vote, AEGEE has been also encouraging local youth to reach out to their local governments, local also like national governments, and advocate there for the causes that are so important to us. So we've also created a guideline on how to reach out to politicians, and with these projects we also ask the ambassadors who travel to these cities to try to arrange the meetings with the local governments themselves, so that the local youth can get also supported and encouraged by these things. So I think that as umbrella organizations, we really have also the responsibility to empower and educate our local members to also take these actions, because only then we can reach if this pressure is coming from all sides to make the change.
Actually, thank you so much for this brilliant bridge, because we just got another question. Exactly there's a lot of pressure on young people really needing to lead this change, this sustainability transformation, and it can be actually pretty a big burden on young people, because we might feel alone, right, and in doing it, and the government might not really supportive, depends where you are. I mean, we see now some action on the climate, but there are like a lot of other topics which are unfortunately left out. And so, yeah, basically the question is, how do we convince the governments to take actions themselves, to try to, give the burden maybe partially to someone else, and not being the ones who have to lead it? Do you have some good examples, or how can we convince the governments better to do this?
I can also continue a little bit on this, because also when during our project, we also asked young people who should take the lead in reaching the change to become a more sustainable world. And more than half of them answered that the government exactly should be the ones who will take the lead on this. And how do we convince them is by being political. We as young people cannot have the luxury of not being political. We need to go and vote, we need to advocate, we need to protest, and we need to also become like political ourselves. Like, we are the young organization, we're growing up, we need to show with the new businesses we create, or the politicians we become, what are the values of the young people, and bring them towards the change. And as you could see also in the last European Parliament elections, for example, in Germany, very big part of the young people already voted for Greens, which shows that there is a slight gap in what the young people want and what the older people are voting for example.
Exactly, being engaged, voting, and taking an active role in this political agenda. Someone else has something to add? You have some experiences, Senne?
Yeah, I think Hanna is actually making the exact right point, that as young people, we have a specific responsibility once again to take action in whatever way we can, in whatever capacity we can. But when it comes to actively creating the change that is needed towards sustainability, well, we just don't have the resources really. The resources right now are in the hands of governments, of business leaders, which is not us. So what we can do is trying to convince them to make the necessary changes, to research the right things, to make sure that the changes are also as right as possible. And then indeed we get into the debate that has been going on in BEST specifically for a long time, and that is, should we be political, yes or no? And because many student organizations prefer to remain apolitical, if there is such a thing as being apolitical, because it's often difficult to make sure to remain well, in the favor of the people we rely on, like governments, like universities that are across different political systems across all of Europe. Personally, I think at some point we can't stay on a sideline, because not taking a position is a position in itself, because choosing not to act is a choice. So at that point, we will all need to take a position, to take a stand that has political consequences, likely. Even though we might not always like it, it is probably a bit out of our comfort zone, but it's not a choice, because not acting is a choice, and we need to all be very aware of that.
Absolutely. And I just have a follow-up question actually to STM and BEST. Is it the time to become political and make the voice of engineering youth be heard in the government? Yeah, maybe Duarte, you want to follow up on this?
Yes, I can follow up, as being on the board also allows you to touch the political and not political question. I do think there are two sides here of the equation when there is a political part. One is being party oriented, like I'm on the right or on the left. I think, guys, on the panelists as well, this is not a question we are touching completely here. What we are touching is societal topics. That's it. And yes, I do think also the initiative of being with you today, also the perspectives of going a little bit more global with our educational impact on the universities, also societally speaking on Europe and Africa as well, has been a societal move somehow. When it comes to making the voice of students heard, okay, I think that's very much a success that BEST is having already on the paper creation part, done year after year. We tried this year, but also the human resources were not there yet. But the thing is, what we are trying to do is to create marketing and scientific frameworks to analyze stuff. So the thing that you are seeing on the market job, the curricular development that we are doing, the creation of graphics, for example, that's the technological advancement that we are trying to give to the NGO, to have technology to show what we should change in those matters. But yeah, I do believe next year we'll have a political exponential growth in STEAM. I think that's the bottom line.
That sounds like an amazing outlook. Senne, do you have something to add, as the question was also directed to you?
Yeah, I think, is it time to become political is once again a question often asked, and the question that I immediately ask back is, what does it mean to be political in the first place? Because sort of any time that we are trying to influence the way our society is organized, that is in a way a political action, depending on which definition of politics you choose. So I think the most important part for us specifically, and I think this applies to many, definitely not all, but many student organizations, is to indeed remain non-partisan, to not consistently pull for one specific party, but to remain sort of an impartial body, just representing the interest of the students, the youth that we are working for. But once again, being apolitical is impossible, in my opinion. It's not a question, should we be political or should we not be, but how. And here specifically, we have already been doing many actions that could be considered political in BEST. For example, as Duarte mentioned, we do a lot of research into education, into how engineering education is structured, how it works. And we write papers on that, we promote them, and sometimes these papers contain recommendations, they contain a position of what best things should happen. Specifically right now, we are writing one on gender and diversity in engineering education, and publishing that paper where we say that we believe a specific thing, well, that is a political action in many definitions, in many versions of the definition of politics. So it's why I have a lot of trouble answering this specific question. The main point is that over time, it will become more and more difficult to remain apolitical, like true apolitical. And instead of resisting it, I think it's more important to see on how to make that work for us and for the purpose that we're working with and for the people we are working for.
Actually, thank you so much for the input. There was just a follow-up question in regards to this position paper you have been, or you're working on, if I got this correctly. So the question is, can we include the SDGs in this as well? Do you think there is enough awareness about the SDGs within within youth gender in Europe, but maybe like first, can we include the SDGs somehow in this report position paper?
Well, yes and no. For the current one, I don't think so, because I mean it's based on a specific set of research that did not include the SDGs in the first place. So it would be weird to or bad research practice to start adding new things in the final stages of the writing of the paper. However, definitely in the future, it's sort of every time we do research, it has a connection to the SDGs, and this comes once again to one of the first things I mentioned, that we need to also focus on looking at where we are already working towards the SDGs and trying to structure that and making it visible more than anything. So I definitely think that in the future, for BEST specifically, there is a position paper where SDGs will be tackled in one way or another. It's going to happen. I think that is an inevitability as well. Right now, the awareness is still a problem. I do not think that amongst STEM students in Europe there is significant awareness or sufficient awareness to go that far yet, which is why this is still going to be, in my opinion, has to be the focus of specifically our own organization for the next 1-2 years.
Absolutely. Someone else, like, what do you think? How is the level of awareness amongst young people in Europe? Maybe you can even tell us some differences. Maybe like Hanna, through Europe on Track, there are some difference you can elaborate, but also any other organization, of course. And then, yeah, how do you specifically try to increase the awareness? You have been already mentioning some campaigns, but if there's any other example, yeah, we would be really happy to know. Also, the audience asked this question, so I think it's of great interest.
Yeah, shortly from the Europe on Track that we had on the topic of SDGs, there was also a question about how the youth could like evaluate how good is the SDG education, and they rated it 5.6 out of 10, as far as I remember, which means that there is still a lot of room for improvement, of course. This was also 2 years ago, as I mentioned, so it's possible that recently it has become more visible. I do, like, when I was traveling there, I did notice that most of the young people knew what it was, and especially when you get to already the university students. When we go to high schools, then the awareness is less, which of course also signaled the problem, because high school students could get this information also through formal education very easily. And as we said, like, when it comes to raising awareness, I think the main thing is just to talk about this and continue our work on this, and also directly mention the link to the SDGs, because that creates the awareness around them. Because as we said, we are all working on them, but sometimes it's just easier not to mention that there is the direct link existing.
Maybe Joana, you want to add something?
Yeah, sure. Regarding, well, we work with the broad public, so we have people in the NGO that they're very aware of the SDGs, but then we work with international students. They are not aware. It's normal. So yes, I think that youth is not still very aware of the topic. Nevertheless, I think that the priority should be global citizenship education, and then we introduce the SDGs. So our priority is to educate citizens to a global mindset in the local level and understand that they are actors on the SDGs framework, and then present it. Because I think that if we show, hey, so here is a framework, there are 17, and it's done, no one will do anything, and it won't stick. So I think the most important part is to educate our communities about our role in our society and how to have a global mindset, and then introduce the SDGs. And that's something that we are trying to do. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Then, yeah, Duarte from ESTIEM, do you have something on this as well?
Yes, just gonna finish up with an example. First of all, yes, I do believe we can do position papers for that. Yes, I do think we are strategically from the board level also creating teams in our associations to propel that. So So I do think it's quite a normal thing that all of the NGOs are doing. On a practical level, in a different approach, I would say what we are trying to do in ESTIEM is to pinpoint successes, which is we have now a local group dashboard where we also have metrics about how societal and environmentally friendly the local groups are. So we have numbers to measure that. So whenever, every month or every 6 months, for example, we do a round of evaluation, if we pinpoint a success, we promote it in the network and we create discussions why that local group is so good in those topics. And then they can see, okay, that's a success, let's benchmark. Yeah, so we are kind of using metrics and local groups. That's it. Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for this. So yeah, I think all of the youth organizations are really working hard on increasing this awareness. But yeah, as already before mentioned, of course, it's not only on the burden of the shoulders of the youth organizations themselves, but yeah, as you also mentioned, we need the formal education sector as well, stepping in and yeah, contributing their part. And yeah, we just received another question on collaboration and awareness in the position paper. Do you think it would make sense to start creating positions or policy papers on behalf of several organizations to increase awareness? So for example, having 4 organizations, maybe the 4 here or any other one, and creating one common paper. So what could be the advantages, maybe disadvantages, challenges, or yeah, there was already some cooperation going on amongst some of the organizations. Do you already have something in mind? Who wants to start?
Oh, when it comes to the upcoming, then we can say a bit. I mean, we definitely, well, I think that already in youth organizations, we have the practice that when one signs a letter or a campaign about the topic, especially regards to advocating towards some decision makers, then it's quite common that youth organizations ask each other, like ask the others to sign it as well. But it's not so common, I believe, to actually create the paper or to create the position together. But I do think that this is something that could be done more. And indeed, in our future collaborations, we also have plans to campaign together on certain topics. And I think that is definitely very important, because it's true that this way we reach more both young people, but also more of the people we advocate towards to with our huge networks together make just a broader reach.
Brilliant, thanks so much. I think you covered already a lot. Is there someone else who wants to
I can add.
Perfect.
I think that, yeah, can I? Thank you. I think that this part of collaborating and developing position papers is very valuable. In Liaison this year, we developed actually 2 position papers with other organizations, and it's very good. So we can actually have two sides of a topic, and to combine different knowledge in a certain field. As for example, one of the topics, firstly, it was the budget for Erasmus Plus, and we developed a paper with that Zoom. So yes, the 2 organizations have 2 different knowledge in the fields, and they combine it, and it became something very, very powerful. And then, for example, we had one in recognition of studies in and pharmaceutical students, and we developed the paper with EPSA. So I think this is very valuable, and I do think that we should, for sure, combine our knowledge here, because we all work towards the agenda. So if we combine what we know and what we do to make a statement and to pave the path for youth, I think it can only be valuable.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Great. There are like so many questions also for the new people who joined. There is the Slido where you can hand in some questions. But now I would really like to understand from your opinion. I mean, we are all young. We are all in youth organization networks all over Europe, and hence also leading or have been doing some youth activities. And when we now want to look in the future, so what is like to come, what is our vision? So how do you envision the future of youth activism here in Europe, or like some already mentioned, even beyond? Do you have some ideas, vision, examples, dreams? So this is really the place now to let the audience know. Who is starting? I guess you're all visionary. Come on. No one visionary of you? Like, I can't imagine. Senne.
Yeah, I can try to say something here. It's a very like sort of a difficult thing to see right now, obviously, because we're in a very precarious situation where the normal youth activities and the normal youth activism focused a lot on getting young people to come together to understand something and then broadcast that somehow to the rest of the world. And that is the main thing right now that needs to change and needs to adapt to the current reality. And given that we can't really expect this reality to change in the next, well, foreseeable future, definitely not on the time scale of a student. So I think the main thing here that the first step will be adaptation. It might be that the near future is a bit annoyingly quiet on the field of youth activism, because we need to first adapt to this reality of working online, of being able to communicate online, where the social connections that us as volunteers, that connects us as volunteers very effectively, are way more difficult to establish. So I do think that we will first need to turn inward a little bit, turn towards making sure that we exist, that this connection still exists, and then use that again in similar ways that we have so far, where I think that increasing the seats around the table that are reserved for young people, that is something that we've all been working on in many ways, and broadcasting the opinions of young people as much as possible and as reasonable as possible. It remains something to be done, but just adapted to the world we live in right now.
Thank you so much for your first thoughts. Someone else want to contribute? How do you see the future of youth activism and activities? Hanna.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to this because I really believe that the youth sector is the most flexible one. And I think it has also been visible in these times because like I saw all of our organizations completely change our scope. Instead of the events that we had planned, we are having online events. There are hundreds of webinars daily. And also even this summit was organized in a very short time. And I think that's an amazing approach to have, and also like this brings in its own advantages. We are more accessible for young people who would maybe otherwise not be able to participate in these kind of discussions, and we're also more accessible, more inclusive, and I also believe that for the future, when we look at activities coming up, we have to really just focus on the fact that we don't, let's say, go back to what was, that we go forward, and we go forward to more mindfulness when organizing events, and rethinking which events have to happen live, which events should happen online, and also when they happen live, that they're done in a sustainable, accessible, and inclusive way.
Absolutely. I think we are already living kind of the future now with this forum, with all the advantages and maybe also some technical challenges as they're always occurring. But yeah, also in the preparation of this call, we mentioned that we are learning, every one of us, like day by day, and this is already a great example of how the future of youth activities and activism can look like. Yeah, Duarte or Joana, do you have something to add? Duarte, yeah.
Yeah, I can go, just also picking up a little bit on my presentation, what I was saying. I do believe the future will pass on being more of even stronger in facilitation and even stronger in statistics for people, since we are the NGOs that encompass a big knowledge, geographical knowledge on our expertise, so technical stuff, industrial engineering, the Erasmus network, and so forth. I do believe we are the ones that have the responsibility also to bring statistics to governments and statistics to the ones that can take action. So I do think, and we also noticed that in STEAM, the analytical perspective of NGOs will increase a lot, at least in the next 2 years. When it comes to facilitation, I do think, and as Anna was saying, these events, and also Senne is an example on this summit, we should also increase what we do in these events. So I do think those two parts, facilitation and analysis, are going to be the ones.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for your thoughts on this. And yeah, as already touched upon, I mean, now we are in a very special time and we can hopefully adjust a lot of things we have been working on for quite some time. So this gives us a very important and interesting role. And now I would like really like to know what do you think, what is the role of young people, and especially also the youth organization you are representing in this recovery of the crisis, and how can we make it, as you mentioned, like a better world, not going back but going forward, and how can we implement all of our, or yeah, some of our ideals and goals and vision into this new world? Big questions. Who wants to go first?
I can say something. I think that our role as not only NGOs but youth is to refocus, because of course now we are facing a terrible situation and we have to focus on some aspects. However, this is part of a bigger picture. And I think that our work here is to adapt to the new reality and make decision makers refocus. So yes, we have this, but we have to arrive there, and we have to still work for sustainable development. And we have we know the economy it's going to collapse, and this is terrible, but this is a reality that we have to work with, and we have to still focus on the other two fields of sustainable development. So I think as youth and as leaders, youth leaders, right? Because we're leading youth in our fields of action, we have to remind ourselves and our peers that we have a goal to achieve, and we must keep working on that with a new reality.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Who wants to contribute? Senne, you go next.
I can't add that much to what both Hanna and Joana already said, that it is all about avoiding all of us to slide back towards what was before, but accept that we are in a new situation, accept that we're in a new reality, and move forward, both in our own systems, in our own societies, in our own NGOs, but also avoiding that the rest of society slides back, because there will, after this situation calms down in some ways, it makes sense that many institutions, corporations, governments want to just go back to the way it was before. But we have seen right now in the past 4 months that all of us, and this is not just going through youth, but through all of society, we're all capable of radical change when it's needed. We're all capable of doing radical changes that can have a positive impact. And kind of that takes away the argument of saying, oh, we need to take it slow, we need to make sure that we don't make mistakes. The argument doesn't exist anymore. And I do think that at some point we'll need to hold the rest of society accountable to that as well, and make sure that industry doesn't say, we're over the crisis, so you can all come back to the office and all start doing your commute every morning again. That's not something that we can allow to happen, because once again we have the platform, but also we will be the ones that are going to be in the industry, they're going to be in politics in reasonably soon. So I think there's our responsibility to our society as a whole. Again, keeping the push going forward.
Yeah, thank you so much. Duarte, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I think just as a conclusion, on also following up on what Senne was saying, and that's been a little bit of a jargon we've been using in ESTIEM, is that we do think our youth organizations are the ones that should set an example for the digital transformation, if that's something you can propose. So we should be the ones that should propel an example on how to work digitally. That's something that we are very used to already. But more than being used on working, we should be used to deliver services digitally. And I do think that will be the sector that will be the best, and will be the ones, not we ESTIEM, but we youth, okay, just for the record. Yeah, will be the ones giving the best examples to companies and governments.
Absolutely. People already living digital conferences, while some other commissions are still debating whether or not doing it, like, yeah, somehow, because they can't meet physically. So I think this is a really great example. Yeah, so we are entering actually the last 20 minutes of discussions. I will pick some more questions now, and then we will already move to the last point. But actually, I would be really interested in to know from you, like, what else do you need and from whom to achieve these SDG targets? I think in the beginning, where we try to understand where we are all at the moment, you all explained what you're doing, which is already great, but I guess everyone mentioned, or also throughout the discussion, that we could even do more, and we actually have to do even more. We already talked about the role of the government, so this is for sure one sector who you all asked for kind of some support to achieve the goals, and they put a little bit of the burden to someone else who also needs to act. But who else is here, and from whom do you need something to be able to achieve this vision you already lined out before?
Well, definitely there are challenges to achieving more. One thing that well, we've noticed in our organization when working on the SDGs and now trying to measure our contributions towards them is that SDG targets and indicators, they're very much targeted towards countries. They're not targeted towards civil society organizations trying to fulfill these goals. Nonetheless, this doesn't mean, of course, that we cannot work on them and we cannot contribute to them. But still, it's very necessary that all other sectors also commit to these. And being Estonian, I also see sometimes how in my country, even though we are so reliant on non-renewable energy, for example, and these kind of things, that these are just things that we as youth sector can try to advocate for, but we cannot really change directly. Of course, as individuals, we can go onto these fields and so on, so we can indirectly work on it, but there's more that's needed. And we also need to have, well, as youth organizations, funding is a necessary question always. And we also need to have funding to make these changes happen. If youth are expected to be the leaders of the change and to bring their new vision and new vision of the new world to reality, then we also need the necessary resources to make it happen. And when we partner with corporate businesses, for example, we also need them to take the necessary steps because we also rely on them to help us make this all into a reality.
Brilliant. Already identified some things we need. Of course, resource, especially financial resource, but also better measures to even somehow measure our targets, to measure our contributions, and having a better set of targets and indicators to be able to. Who else has something to add? What do you need, and from whom?
Yeah, I can shortly contribute here. I think from the experience that STEAM has is that as Hanna was saying, we are going to be the leaders of change, leaders of society in the future. Clearly, the students, the target group, and something that we've been seeing is that the students that are going to be the future are directly linked to the education that they receive in the university. So if the system, which is university, around them changes, then the students most likely easily will change. So if I had to pinpoint one that we think is crucial is the university as an institution, because if the system around you in your daily life changes, and it's kind of mandatory to put into your learning experience to learn about the SDGs, then obviously you'll become proficient in understanding SDGs. So if we have to pick up one, universities would be an easy pick.
Absolutely, another stakeholder who should support our efforts, and sometimes maybe already doing it, but for sure there is a lot of room to improve. Senne, do you have some contributions?
Yeah, I mean, I can't do anything else but agree with what's been said before. These are indeed some of the main things that we will need to be able to move forward. I think one other thing, potentially a bit on a smaller scale, is recognition in many ways for what we are doing. because that will create the space for us to actually do this. Specifically, this comes down to we're all doing volunteer work, but neither universities nor companies are structurally recognizing that as something valuable. So there's no real space within our lives, according to the current system, for us to partake in youth activism, except for the select few who choose to, well, sacrifice some things or just are lucky enough to manage their own life sufficiently well to be able to combine all these things together. But for many people, it's not an option for financial reasons, because university is too tough to be able to handle it because they need a job. And I think that here, both corporations, even governments and universities can all somehow, should all somehow recognize that what youth activism itself contains a specific set of skills that is marketable. And at that point, that gives young people the space to raise their voice without repercussions on their careers and livelihoods.
Absolutely. Identified some other places where we have to increase efforts. Joana, do you have something to add?
I totally agree, of course, with what has been said. I think that the only reflection that I can make is that we can start things and we can start projects and we can have a lot of different initiatives that are very inspiring and so, but if all the actors do not cooperate, we'll stay the same. SDG 17 assesses the need of cooperating and different actors as civil society, governments, and so to work together in order to achieve sustainable development. I think that, and it's not only in the NGO world, but in the world, we must stop competing and start collaborating to achieve something bigger. So if we do that, and everyone involved, I think we can do some change.
Absolutely. We already talked about different forms of collaboration and where you already collaborate and where you have still some maybe room and some ideas to move on. And maybe this leads me to a question we haven't touched upon yet. Like how do we achieve a better intergenerational dialogue? Because now we are all here young on this panel, right? So mostly also talking to people with a similar vision, like the same age range. But then you probably all also face that, like, what is happening if you go out and there are like some other people, they might not respect you, but they might be very open. I mean, there are a lot of different expectations and realities and experience. So how can we achieve a better intergenerational dialogue? And do you have some tips and tricks also for the audience?
Yeah, I can. I can say some things here. The main point here is to actually engage in intergenerational dialogue. That's the only real way to improve it. And we're lucky that at this point there are many adults, like actual adults, who are very willing to talk to youth and are very willing to listen to them as well. And in some way, like, it's sort of one of the responsibilities or one of the options we have is to actively engage with these people who are already reaching a hand to us. And we've seen that definitely if you're used to being engaged, if you're used to speaking with adults, they do tend to take you seriously because many adults are willing to do so. Many governments, institutions. Duarte and I were actually together in a conference from CEFI in September, and it's very visible there that we as students, like 22, 23 years old, are taken seriously by deans of universities that are 65, 70 years old. And it's a very empowering activity. So I think this is already a very good sign. On the other hand, by having this experience, by talking to people who want to talk to us, by having a proper interaction between different generations, it also gives us the necessary experience to open up new conversations with people who are not inclined to do so at this point. Basically, by having the experience of talking to people, talking to these deans, that gives me the opportunity to also open a conversation with a less willing participant from somewhere else in the industry or in the market. And that way actively pushing for this dialogue. Because I think every indication is there that all parties involved can have a valuable conversation. And in the end, the only real challenge is making all the participants understand that the debate is relevant. At that point, they'll be very willing to engage in the next one.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for your experience and some of your tips and tricks. Duarte, Hanna, Joana, do you have something to add?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I could add a little bit because I agree with Senne that the main thing is to actually act and actually step into this intergenerational communication. And one of the things is also that I think that often we talk past each other because we also use different communication channels. Like I cannot imagine my grandmother following this online summit, and that's why it's also we have to look at all these barriers that we have in the communication with each other. On the other hand, when you see like local governments organizing these open events for citizens to come and talk, the average age there is quite old. So it's important that we don't talk maybe even about the same things, but on different platforms and never reach into an actual debate or a discussion. I went to a small city in Italy last year where I heard that they have a Telegram channel which pops a message to everybody following every time the local government makes a decision about something. And this has definitely increased a lot the citizen engagement in that city. And I think like this is a very simple, small thing, but these kind of initiatives, e-governance, and things to engage all generations are needed, and it has to be from both sides. Youth need to reach out more to the older generations, and the older generations also should reach out to youth more. But as Senne said, some of them already do that.
Brilliant. Duarte, you wanted to add something, right?
Yes, I think it's yet again, I'm always talking about the analyst perspective, but whatever, I'm going to continue because it was quite important for our year. I do think, and Senne also told, we were in SEFI conference this year, and I got struck by many SEFI representatives. They were asking, yeah, what is your value proposition as a STEAM? I was like, okay, what can I offer you? So what we analyzed is that very deep into our products, we are not talking the same language to these stakeholders, to deans or to companies or whatever. So we came one step back and we said, okay, in order to create these interchangeable dialogues, as we are asking here, we need to create products that these stakeholders are willing to talk with us about. So that's why we came a step back and we created this part of databases and analysis and dashboards on these professional informations for these stakeholders. So we believe this can be also products that other NGOs can develop in their own topics to better create discussions about important societal topics. Yeah.
Brilliant. We got some other questions by the audience. So related to the SDGs being mainly for the countries, would an online global meeting organized by all students with the focus on youth and sustainability make sense? So yeah, how can we better collaborate? Do you have some ideas? Duarte, you wanted to say something?
Yes, that's really interesting because I do think in STEAM we believe in intercontinental, like worldwide benchmarking, but not worldwide execution. So I do think that, and that was also something the research of STEAM, we took out many partnerships that were worldwide. So I do, for that question, I do believe we can get together, and also Senne talked about Meeusen, and that's a great platform that STEAM also uses, to talk and to execute common projects. Worldwide, only talking, I wouldn't go further because the execution is quite slow.
Absolutely. Someone else something to add? Senne, yeah?
Yeah, there can be a lot of value in having an online global meeting with students. It depends a lot on the scope of it. It depends a lot on the exact purpose. I do think, however, basically, as Duarte already was mentioning as well, that the actual execution just happens more effectively within limited scope. because that is why we organize in the first place. And let's leverage on the organization already existing when it comes to execution, because that is just going to be more effective. And then collaboration is obviously one part. But once again, I don't think that there's a need for finding ways to collaborate, because I think we all have necessary platforms, we all have necessary connections to find the organization we want to collaborate with. But the challenge is always in finding projects, to finding purposes, finding causes to collaborate on, which could be used in an online global meeting, but then we basically get into resource assessment, how relevant it would be to organize it.
Absolutely, and we have only 5 minutes left. And yeah, thanks so much for all the questions. It was really interesting, and I think also it's really important to have kind of interaction in the webinars. Yeah, despite we are all over Europe, and also our audience is spread all over the continent. So having this possibility to engage. And with this, we started our panel with outlining where we are at the moment. What are you doing? Then we had the interactive panel and to try to create a vision and talk about the obstacles and talk about your vision and dreams and what the future, like how it could look like. And now we'll be very interested in the last 5 minutes to talk about the next step. So how do we achieve our great vision, right? So what are the next steps? What concrete actions are you going to do already now, starting during COVID or maybe shortly after, to implement your or to take one step further in your in your dream? Who wants to start with the first step? Concrete actions. Senne.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the first action still needs to be, in my opinion, specifically in the target audience of BEST, is raising awareness and continuing to do so as effectively as possible, making sure that first our own volunteers understand and that our own volunteers can become active ambassadors for the cause we're talking about. And as soon as that sort of starts, then it is very important to create space for grassroots movements, to make sure that small initiatives from some of our students are able to grow, are able to thrive, and able to have an impact that is also being broadcasted. And as soon as that is working, the next step, specifically in BEST, would then be to really create Europe-wide initiatives with real large-scale impact. Yeah, in the meanwhile, obviously, there's many different ways that we can do already small contributions, decentralized things. But the focus would have to be on awareness, I think.
Absolutely. And let's do like a quick round. Duarte?
I would go clearly with Senne as well, because our target group is very focused on technology as well and engineering, even though more on the management side. Also raising awareness, since it's very correlated with education, societal topics. We also face that, and I also face that in my own position, so raising awareness. And other than that, I think, I don't know, obviously European-wide, yes, but perhaps regional-wide, starting out with a region specifically that is very good on this. Imagine the Nordics. I can imagine, not completely sure, but I can imagine starting with success cases of initiatives in the Nordics, for example, and then expand to the whole network. That would be it.
Thank you so much. Hanna?
Yeah, so definitely, in addition to raising awareness and educating, I think the advocacy component is still very, very important. From local level to European level, I think that it's very important that youth work on these topics, but it's also very important that not all the pressure is put on individuals and young people, but also the current leaders, older generations have to take steps for it, and that's why we need to advocate and say that this is important to us. And in addition, like to advocating and saying that this is important to us, it's also important to show that we are already working on it, and they should also better work on it. So by measuring and showing to everybody what are our actions, we can also encourage more actions from everyone, I believe.
Brilliant. And then Joana, your final statement. What are your next steps?
So in Liaison, we're going to continue educating our volunteers in the matter. So that we do believe that global citizenship education shouldn't be something that happens and then we move on. So this is something that we must continue and operate along with the development of our volunteers as well. We know we organize a lot of activities in some fields and in our causes, but we must understand the impact of the activities that we organize in the 3 levels. So we are going to work on the impact as well of the activity of ESN in for the SDGs. And as well, we are going to work in involving international students in the agenda. Learning mobility is a crucial tool to global citizenship education. And our aim and what we do is the target 4.7. So we are going to continue working on that and involve everyone, not only our network, but the people that we work with, namely international students.
Thank you so much, Joana, for this last final statement. As we cannot clap to the audience now, let's do like a round of the silence clapping. Yeah, so thank you so much for this really high-level panel. Thank you so much, Joana from ESN. Thank you, Hanna from AEGEE. Thank you, Duarte from ESTIEM and Senne from BEST, really having all of you coming together on the Saturday, talking about youth and the SDGs, coming up with concrete examples how you better want to collaborate, what we here in Europe could do, but also involving other stakeholders and do a shared responsibility to move on with this agenda. So thanks so much for all this contribution, and also doing silent clapping for the best virtual summit. I think this was a really brilliant idea first, and then a vision, and then following how you have been doing it, that everything worked. Also, so thank you so much for all the people working in the background doing the technical stuff, that you could ask the question, that we had the live streams. So yeah, brilliant. And actually tomorrow you can even take action in the SDG case studies on Sunday, and for this you best check out the BEST website. And there you can also register and find all the necessary information. So it would be really great if you take action, of course, outside and after this webinar as well. Join one of the organizations if you're not yet part of, join their SDG activities, but also tomorrow join more, and join the SDG case study session. And I believe as well, if there's any question, you can always reach out to our amazing panelists. They're very happy to support you in your journey on youth activism and youth activities, and to implement the SDGs here in Europe. With this, thank you so much to everyone, and an amazing evening and afternoon.